which is a case that occurred over break, which is another terrible story. And, of course, the trial, Word of Life trial underway. Now, some confusing, I'm a bit confused, and maybe somebody can explain this. At some point during the trial, and Christine, I'm assuming that even though you're on your way to Mississippi, you were following this. I mean, this is really just an incredible trial as the details begin to unfold. But the headline would read that Christopher Leonard, the young boy that survived, admitted to inappropriately touching the children of Sarah Ferguson, or at the very least, touching children. Is that what came out of this, or did he admit that he admitted it during the beating? Do we know? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did he admit that he did inappropriately touch these children, or did he admit that through these beatings that he had admitted to them at that time?
Maybe to stop
it.
Yeah.
Do you follow where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
I believe the answer is both.
Is both. Now, here is what we have. It says, this according to CNN, Christopher Leonard survived the beating in the sanctuary of the Word of Life Christian Church here in upstate New York. On Tuesday, while testifying against his stepsister, Sarah Ferguson, one of 8 church members charged in connection with the death, Leonard admitted he had inappropriately touched her children. His stepsister learned about the touching during a church counseling session in October of 2015. And here's the quote from Rebecca Whitman, the attorney, defense attorney. And you were telling Ferguson about that, correct? He said, yes. And you were sort of using graphic details about what you had done, correct? And he said, yes. So basically out of that, he admits that he did touch the children, right? Yet we've been told that any of the investigation, there's been no evidence of this young man, this 17-year-old, and his brother. There's been no evidence of these young children being molested.
Correct. And here's what I guess is the gray area. So we talked about this. I don't know how much of this we covered on the air. Say for instance, you were holding your wife's hand, and maybe you weren't married. It has been suggested to us that maybe in the church's view, we don't know this for sure, this has been suggested, in the church's view, that is not appropriate, that you should not be holding someone's hand of the opposite sex, or hugging,
or kissing,
or kissing. But I
clearly in this case, these are children,
right? So I chose something as benign as holding hands.
Yeah.
So maybe they went. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much. In the testimony, to my knowledge, there were never details of what he admitted to. When asked though about the inappropriate touching, he said yes. I believe when pressed further on molesting, he said no, we did not molest them.
Well, right, because this is
the part that I guess I'm confused about the testimony, and I can't find any of the information. What type of touching are we talking about here?
Was it a hug? Were they maybe like kids tend to wrestle?
Is there touching of the genitals? Because here's what has come out of the investigation. The investigation did not disclose any indications of Lucas or Christopher sexually abusing any child, according to testimony. To the contrary, the investigators were told it would have been impossible for either of these boys to commit any inappropriate acts. Other than Chris stating that he had bad thoughts, there is nothing to indicate he committed any crime. And in New York, you cannot convict someone on just that admission alone. Interviews and physical exams of the children showed no signs of sexual abuse. The admission by Chris came out only in the testimony last week. So I think this really surprised the prosecution. I think they were caught off guard. I don't think they expected Chris Leonard to say that he did, there was inappropriate touching.
And again, as Jeff said, this is merely speculation. But two, if you look at it, he was raised in this church, in this way of life and this faith. So to him, admitting yes to inappropriate touching may be just whether it be horsing around or a hug from behind or something like that, because that's what he was taught. So to go further and say, so did you do any inappropriate touching to the areas or whatever, he would, probably say no, because maybe in his mind, because of his upbringing, that is inappropriate touching, the hug from behind, or even
so, none of us are suggesting that is appropriate cause to be beaten to death.
Right? No.
Well,
no, I understand that. However, if I'll say it, if my child were molested, I don't know how I would handle that. I'm not sure what I would do.
Well,
I would with you. I'm hesitant to say that, but I agree.
I'm not saying it justifies you.
Correct.
And any time authorities or counselors, people will say to the parents, if there's been a discovery, be careful what you do. You will be, if you were to attack this person, you will be the one that will be in jail, not this person. So there's no justification. However, I don't know how I would act. I couldn't tell you.
And my understanding of this is Sarah Ferguson and a lot of the defendants and their defense attorneys are arguing that because of their religious faith and what that entails, that would be an appropriate defense in a way, because who are we as the prosecutors or the people to condemn them for what they do, and their punishment fit the crime, as it were.
Well, they can make.
I'm not sure that's what they're. I'm not sure that's what they're trying to.
And even if they made that argument, there's still a law that you can't do that.
And remember, there's no jury here, so this is actually just this will be Judge Dwyer that makes this ruling, and I think that is you don't have to worry about the emotions. So you're not. I mean, if it was a jury, I could see. You'd be playing on the emotions of the jurors who would say, hey, if somebody inappropriately touched my child, I might do the same thing, and have sympathy on Sarah Ferguson. But you're talking about a judge here. I'm not sure what benefits, and maybe that's why this didn't they didn't go into it further, because I don't know that there is any, is it a difference between a murder charge and manslaughter, however? I guess I don't know enough about it, but it's very vague in the testimony. I of course, like everybody else, I'm curious to know what was this, and is it a distortion of what sexual or what inappropriate touching is, like
right.
Based on religion and these is it kissing, is it holding hands, what is it? And the testimony, at least what we've seen, didn't get into any of that.
It didn't. And then the other thing I thought that was noteworthy was that, and I read this or saw this on WUTR. I didn't get full details on it, but that her children, Sarah Ferguson's children, had been moved up to or were living up in an attic area or an upstairs area because there was a thought that this had been going on for some time. So to remove them from Christopher and Lucas, they had been moved upstairs into an upstairs bedroom or attic area, and that's where they were staying. But again, there weren't a ton of details available on what they thought happened.
And maybe some of this will come out in closing arguments, because I thought it was a big decision that the prosecution made when they were cross-examining Sarah Ferguson, is that they really they were kind of questioning the legitimacy of her testimony, whether or not the children were really inappropriately touched. So I guess, is it possible that this kid has been homeschooled and brought up in this world, that he would have a distorted view as to what inappropriate touching really is? And is that what the prosecution is going to say in their closing arguments? And at the end of the day, Christine's right. At the end of the day, does the discovery of inappropriate touching justify the torture and beating of these kids? And I'm afraid the answer to that is no. But legally, is there a difference between murder and manslaughter based on that testimony? There's a lot coming out today. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of the closing arguments. Hold on, we're coming right back. We're going to talk about delegates revolting against possibly Donald Trump. Is there still going to be some controversy at the Republican convention, which is coming up real soon? Hold tight. Coming right back at WIBX.